And we know which category is on all of our minds these days to a more significant extent. But our reservoirs were designed after the benchmark drought of the 1950s to hold water, right? And certainly with the Lake Houston Dam gates, we all know not designed to let water out. And so one of the eligible projects out of the new infrastructure fund that we created in Senate Bill 7 is a project that is with a finite number of dollars available and projects coming in from all over the state. One of the most important projects on that list that made it through session is to replace the gates on the Lake Houston Reservoir. Right. So, and I'll turn it back over to Dan to talk about education some, but one of the two most important efforts and initiatives that were accomplished were, along with the flood recovery bill for the state of Texas, that'll be a regional bill that the entire state can depend on. We've seen dams fail in Central Texas. We've seen flooding, all across the state, and this bill will help everyone. But being able to replace the Lake Houston Dam gates and a bill that Representative Metcalf carried and that we all supported and I sponsored in the Senate will create a mandate for any dam operators anywhere in Texas and an alarm system that you can register and tie into, that if there's a release, you know it, and you know the modeling is showing that that dam operator is considering a release, and you will know, and homeowners and businesses will know way ahead of time than 2 or 3 in the morning as a surprise, and you all know what I'm talking about. So we were able to accomplish some really significant reforms and strides in this category. We could have a whole lunch just based on it, but I'm so proud of Chairman Huberty's work in education and public ed, and it's really several chapters of him being a statewide leader in the space of public education, not just what our communities rely on, but for the entire state. And we left off last session with a lot of ideas, not this session that just ended, but 2 years ago. And oil prices down, revenue down, and he picked the ball up from that conclusion of that session and did what many consider to be almost an impossible task. The third major overhaul of school finance and school funding and education reform in 84 years. And folks, there's a reason why it was only the third time in 84 years of a major significant category like this is. Last, you remember in the 80s, Ross Perot, maybe no pass, no play in a lot of those conversations, but he's not going to say it, but with over 1,000 school districts in Texas and everyone at the table having a great idea, any of us served on committees where everyone has the best idea, right? And we're supposed to, right? We're Texans. We're stubborn. We're entrepreneurial. We have great ideas. We have backbone, and we're going to make sure they're heard. That's okay. But in the legislature, and Representative Wally will verify this, in public education, every time someone had their opinion or for their school district or just a small metric to put into the bill, there'd be a ripple effect that really might be, it might need months to study exactly what the repercussions and consequences would be. And real time, Dan, without sleep for half a year, was doing this day and night, more napping than sleeping. And I want to brag on him a second for dealing with all those A-types, all those political mindsets, and all the voices in every one of those individual elected officials' ears back at home saying we must have this, and he managed it somehow. And so let's give him a round of applause as he explained. Yeah. And we'll turn it over to Dan to talk education.
Well, thank you, Brandon. That was very nice of you. Every time he said damn, I was thinking about the vape. sitting over there, and that's it. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. And Mike Sullivan, my roommate for this session, and other people that I've had an opportunity to serve with. Brandon's right. I wasn't sure I was coming back last session. House Bill 21 ended in a complete train wreck, and I was frustrated. I was frustrated for a variety of reasons, and then, of course, we had Hurricane Harvey that hit about, Casey, a week after we got back from the special session. And, spent, 2 months digging out and figuring out what I was going to do. And somebody said, you got to go back. And Dave Martin said that. And by the way, I'm going to stop right here and just say two things. Number one, I couldn't do this job without my wife, Janet. Thank you for being here today. My daughter, Brianna, back from Texas Tech, guns up. She's working for Councilmember Martin. And then my chief of staff, Casey Chrisman, who today is her birthday, by the way. So, yeah. So, give her lots of gifts. She likes those. We decided to go back and figure out how to fix this thing. So we had a little bill this session called House Bill 3, which was the all-encompassing reforms of education. And part of House Bill 21 that we ended up passing last session was a school finance commission. And that commission spent a year working. And so it's funny when you have little staff members that work in the Capitol and they're like, oh, how's your interim? I'm like, what does that mean? What's an interim? That means that it's between the session and the next session. There was not an interim for me. I had over 70 meetings, in-person meetings in Austin from the time we got done with the special session till the time we got back, including running my committee. And we spent an enormous amount of time trying to figure out what is wrong with education in the state of Texas. And there's a variety of things. Texas is a very, it's a melting pot, right? We've got kids from all over the world that are coming into the state of Texas. They can't speak English. And that doesn't mean they're Hispanic or anything else. I mean, I'm talking, there's multiple languages. You go down to Houston ISD, and there's over 90 languages that kids speak. Think about educating kids in one method. And so what we did is we took the information that we learned over that period of time and developed a bill that we believe long-term will be transformative for education in the state of Texas. We believe that what we have done is we're putting the money in the classroom. We're putting money where the kids belong. We're putting the money where we have to educate kids. The first time ever in the state of Texas, we are funding dyslexia. And we've identified, and that's important. That's important to me. I'm dyslexic. My son's dyslexic. The Speaker of the House is dyslexic. I couldn't even say it because I can't even spell it, but the Speaker before that was dyslexic. I mean, there's so many people that have done that. And we identify children as putting them on drugs because they act out in class. But the reality is that, think about it, if you're a teacher and you're asking a kid to read and they can't read, they physically can't read. They don't understand it. And so what do? They act out. And so the parent says, well, we're going to put them on drugs, or we're going to do something else to educate them that way. Well, that's not the way we're going to do it. And so when I've talked to Dr. Fagan and the board members and Mr. Scarfo and Mr. Sitton, and we talked through the session about how do we get the money into the classroom. And I'm proud to say that Dr. Fagan did exactly what I wanted you to do with that money, is awarding money, the money that we gave to them, to the senior teachers. Not suggesting that we shouldn't pay the younger teachers at all, but keeping the good teachers in the classroom, paying them, taking care of them. And I know Huffman's doing the same thing. Benny's here, and Patrick and you guys, these board members, are doing a great job on that as well. You're doing the right thing because that's what we expect. That's what we want. And you can't change the system overnight. Brandon was right. You can't do it overnight. It took a long time for us to be able to figure that out. But there's so many transformative things that we've done. And the first time that we've done this, 1984, was the last time that they actually changed the education system in the state of Texas. I want you to think about that for a second. 1984. That's the last time that they've done that. We put $6.5 billion into education. Included in that bill, however, was also another $5 billion of tax relief. So if you don't know this, if you own a home here in this area, your tax bill is going to go down, was it 10 cents in the first year? Is that right? I'm looking at you, Liz. Well, you guys just adopted your budget. What the hell is it? Yeah. Sorry, I'm just kidding. I'm just jacking with her at 10 cents, and it goes down to 12 cents the next year. So, but the point is that, you know, we're talking about tax relief that's very important. And so we did a balancing act on that. We also took care of our retired teacher, and I mentioned that earlier when I mentioned Gail. But that's important. We've got thousands of retired teachers that haven't had a pay increase in years. And just so you know, is that you work here in the state of Texas, you're not eligible for Social Security. So you're not getting a cost of living increase or anything that goes with that. So we actually put a system in place. We put $560 million in so that we can balance the budget. The appropriators did. Thank you very much. To make sure that they got a check associated with that. So there's so many things that are amazing, but I want to bring up Representative Wally when you come up here for a second, because I give him a round of applause because the work that, and I want him to talk a little bit about, and grab a chair and come over here and sit with us. This is how I want to introduce him. I think this is important. His family lives here, and he and I spoke on a panel the other day. And I said, well, I live in the most redneck part of Harris County. And he was, like, offended. He's like, well, my family lives there. I was like, okay, well, they're rednecks. You know, it's fine. You know, I live in Humble and Huffman, and you know, that's what I represent, right? Benny, we're rednecks out here. So, yeah, absolutely. So we're fine with that. You know, that doesn't offend us. But Chairman Wally worked very hard this session to make sure that we got money in the right places. And one of the things that I think is important for you to know is that we got $30 million that is coming to the Lake Houston specifically.
Thank you.
Talk about the disaster we're hearing at Texas through A&M.
You got it. You got it. Well, good afternoon. My name is